All right, so this is my morning commute to work, and I'm riding a Sonder Camino Rival 1 hydraulic disc brake bike, or with an aluminum or an aluminium frame. And I suppose, like any other story, how I ended up on a British built, or designed and assembled anyway, bike in Florida is a long story, depending on how far you want to go back. A year ago, I got a new job primarily for the location, 6.5 miles from my home, so I can ride to work. And relatively safely. Actually, the commute in isn't bad. It's the afternoons coming home that get dicey. But so I started commuting to work on my 1991 Specialized Stump Jumper Comp, a chromoly frame mountain bike, 21 speed, 26-inch wheels, and absolutely loved it. I don't think any time in my life I've ridden a bike every day until now. And so it was clear that that old bike would need an update if I was going to keep riding every day. And Lana started riding with me, not for the commute, but for rides on the weekends. And we started going longer and longer till we were going like well over 30 miles on 26-inch wheel mountain bikes, and then started riding off-road, doing dirt road and trails in the area, and again started going longer and longer, and that got a bit rough on 26-inch wheels with skinny tires. So because I'd put so much work into getting that 1991, that 31-year-old bike back in shape to ride every day, started thinking about building a bike myself. And I actually came across a YouTube video from Cycling Weekly, Rupert's dream commuter build, where he was putting together a bike for himself, starting with a surly straggler steel frame, and then SRAM Rival 1 components, kind of a budget build. Well, definitely a budget build. Hunt wheels. I think we went with Shimano brakes though. Probably wise. So started researching components and builds, and of course at the worst possible time for distribution issues, especially with Shimano. So the notion of building my own bike from scratch like quickly became untenable based on component availability. So for the longest time, for months, I figured our best bet for the type of riding we'd be doing was the aluminum, the AL5 from Trek the Demone, which is the has the 105 Shimano 105 group set, but only fits 700C wheels up to, I think on the aluminum it's only up to 35, and it was already obvious that the off-road riding we were doing in gravel and mud was already more than a 35 millimeter tire would be comfortable or adequate for. And so started looking at frames on bikes with you fit larger tires. And I think it's at that point that I came across an article, I think also from Cycling Weekly, awarding the Sonder Camino as a gravel bike of the year. And I think it was specifically the Rival 1 because of, I think in part, the price point. Very attractive price point for a bike with those components. And that's also the point that I figured a 1x front having constant issues with my front derailleur on my 31-year-old Specialized, so that 1x system would be just easier to maintain and sufficient for the riding I'm doing, especially the daily commute, which is the majority of my miles. So we decided that we would, at the end of summer, we would order some Caminos, but then a few things happened. First, distribution and availability of bikes all over the world got very tight, and ship dates and build dates kept pushing further and further out for a lot of especially high-end bikes. Is literally a year out for ship dates, and for the smaller frames, probably those frames they make fewer of, were getting really hard to find, and you couldn't order anything from Trek, and the local retailers had very limited stock. And we saw you could still get the Sonder Camino Rival 1, I think 2 months, with a 2-month wait, and it kept checking the stock every day. It kept the choices and the availability kept going down. So, kind of on a whim, we decided to just order them months early while we could get them. And we ordered them at $15.99 each. Definitely budget entry-level bike. But it was fortuitous because a week later Sonder announced their new frame geometry and build for the Sonder Camino, with a crazy slack head tube angle, 69 degrees, and wide enough to fit up to, if you went with a 650B, up to a 2.2, which were the size of mountain bike tires we were running on our mountain bikes at the time and loving. And they raised the price to $19.99, but if you already had an order in, you would get the new frame and build without the price increase. So for the price of the older, I think 2nd generation Camino, we actually got the newest version, the newest build. So it was already a very good score. Whew. So, flash forward 2 months and our Caminos arrive. We paid, I think, $50, $55 additional for tubeless setup, which actually turned out to kind of be a mistake. I'll talk about later. And then paid for rim upgrades, wheel set upgrades for a much better hub, much better hubs. I think like 6-pawl, 3 or 4 degrees of engagement, and much lighter, and also 28 spoke, thinner spokes, which also kind of turned out to be a mistake. I'll also talk about later. So we get the bikes. By the way, there was no additional import taxes on those, which I was surprised by, and $90 for delivery from the UK. And came all assembled except front wheel, handlebars, seat post. So they were very easy to assemble. And while assembling, it actually, not until I pretty much finished assembling both bikes, I realized that they had shipped this Camino with the stock rims, the Novas, which are really bad. Very budget entry level. I think they sell the wheels for $100 now, US. 32 spokes, heavy, slow. That's what I'm still riding now, waiting to upgrade the wheels later in the summer. So contacted, and to be fair, with all of the mistakes, and there were many with our order, the front tire on this bike was flat, and when I took the tire off, the tubeless tape was just a disaster. Like, it was loose, 4 wraps, had sealant between every layer and into the rim and out the spokes. So ended up retaping with Gorilla tape that I'd used to make my 31-year-old mountain bike rims tubeless. They're not designed at all for it. Glad I did though, because I had the practice, and it took more than one application to get it to seal. So I had to retape the front rim. And to be fair to Sonder, and Alpkit, which is the parent company, they refunded obviously the price of the wheels that I didn't get, the upgrade, and also the full price of the tubeless setup, which was fair. So that gets us to our first ride on our Caminos, which was eventful, very eventful to say the least. I'll continue that story on another ride.